You might think you know luxury, but Qatar's richest kids are on a whole other level. We're about to show you a world where supercars are traded like Pokemon cards and private islands are just another holiday home. From number 10 to number 1, we're counting down the most insane displays of wealth you've ever seen. These kids ain't playing with regular toys. They're cruising in private jets, chilling on mega yachts, and living in mansions that make celebrity cribs look like cardboard boxes. We're talking about kids who wake up in silk sheets, eat off gold plates, and probably use $100 bills as napkins. But it's not just about the money. These kids are growing up in a world of power, influence, and crazy connections. They're rubbing elbows with royalty, hanging out with celebs, and learning how to run empires before they can drive. So get ready to see how the other half, scratch that, the other 0.01% lives. It's gonna blow your mind. Issa Almana, the pop icon who's got a cool $360 million to her name. But that's nothing compared to his dad, Wissam Almana. This guy's sitting on $1 billion empire. He runs the Almana Group, which is like owning half the fancy stores in a mall, but way bigger. Imagine growing up with a dad who's got the keys to brands like Dolce & Gabbana and Alexander McQueen. Issa's probably wearing designer diapers, if that's even a thing. And his toys, forget about it. We're talking private jets instead of toy planes. This kid's vacations are next level. While other kids are begging their parents for a trip to Disney, Issa's jetting off to private islands in the Maldives. And when winter rolls around, he's hitting up luxury ski resorts in the Swiss Alps. It's like his life is one big expensive commercial for the good life. But Issa ain't just living off his parents' fame and fortune. At just 6 years old, he's already showing he's got some skills of his own. Word is, he's killing it on the cello and violin. Looks like musical talent runs in the family. And red carpet events? For Issa, that's just a regular Tuesday night. While other kids are watching movies at home, he's probably at the premieres, hanging out with Hollywood's finest. Now, you might think all this fame and money would go to a kid's head. But Issa's parents are keeping things real. They're all about that co-parenting life, even though they split up when Issa was just a baby. They're working hard to keep his life private and normal. Well, as normal as it can be when you're worth billions. Issa's growing up in London, which is pretty much the playground for rich kids. But his life ain't just about the bling. His dad's teaching him the ropes of the business world, while his mum's showing him the ins and outs of the entertainment industry. It's like he's getting a master class in how to run the world before he even hits middle school. Hussein and Mohammed Al Baker. Introducing to you Hussein and Mohammed Al Baker, the sons of Qatar Airways big boss Akbar Al Baker. These guys ain't just rich, they're aviation royalty. Their dad's the CEO of Qatar Airways, and he's got more titles than most people have socks. We're talking chairman of One World and a bunch of other fancy positions. Under his watch, Qatar Airways has blown up big time. They've got over 200 planes flying to more than 160 places around the world. And get this, the airline's raking in over $10 billion a year. That's billion with a B. But these Al Baker boys ain't just sitting back and enjoying daddy's money. Nah, they're in on the family business too. Hussein, the older one, is all up in Qatar Airways business. He's been a big part of making the airline bigger and better. And he's got a thing for new tech, always looking for cool new stuff to make flying fancier. Mohammed, on the other hand, is more about the family's other money-making schemes. He's into real estate and investments, showing he's got some serious business smarts too. Now, you might think these guys are out there flashing their cash all over social media, but that ain't their style. They like to keep things on the down low. No Instagram flexing for these dudes. They're more about living large in private, but don't get it twisted. They're still living that ultra-rich life. Their cribs, think mega mansions with all the bells and whistles. We're talking private movie theaters, swimming pools that look like something out of a resort, and interiors that'd make your jaw drop. And cars? Oh, they've got cars all right. Their garage is like a who's who of luxury rides. They've got rare models that most people only see in magazines or video games. These guys probably have a different ride for each day of the week. When it comes to vacations, the Al Baker boys don't mess around. Why fly commercial when your dad's got a fleet of private jets? They're jetting off to exotic places in planes that are decked out like five-star hotels with wings. And when they land, it's all about private islands and the fanciest resorts money can buy. But here's the thing. Even with all this crazy wealth, Hussein and Mohammed ain't about that show-off life. They're more focused on learning the ropes of the family business. While other rich kids are popping bottles in clubs, these guys are probably studying airline routes and crunching numbers. It's like they're training to take over an empire. Their dad's built Qatar Airways into one of the best airlines in the world. It's been named top dog 5 times by some fancy airline awards. So these boys have got some big shoes to fill. Sheikh Faisal bin Qasim Al Thani's. Their dad, Sheikh Faisal, ain't your average billionaire. He's worth a cool $1.7 billion and runs Al Faisal Holding, which is like owning a piece of everything in Qatar. We're talking hotels, real estate, manufacturing, you name it. But that's not even the craziest part. These kids call a private museum home. Yeah, you heard that right. Their dad's got a collection of over 15,000 items, from antique cars to ancient coins and Islamic art. It's like living in a history book, but way fancier. But don't think these kids are stuck in Qatar. Nah, they've got the world as their playground. Al Faisal Holding owns over 20 hotels worldwide, so when these kids want a vacation, they're not booking a room. They're choosing which luxury hotel they want to run for the week. Imagine waking up one day and saying, I feel like chilling in the Maldives, and then jetting off to your family's beachfront resort. Or maybe they're in the mood for some French cuisine, so they hop over to their 5-star hotel in Paris. It's like they've got a golden ticket to every fancy place on earth. And these hotels ain't your average holiday inn. We're talking about places with marble floors, crystal chandeliers and lobbies that look like they're straight out of a royal palace. These kids probably think room service means having a personal chef on call 24/7. But it ain't all about living the high life for these Al Thani children. They're also learning the family business. While other kids are playing video games, these ones are probably sitting in on board meetings, learning how to run a billion-dollar empire. And get this, they're into giving back too. Al Faisal Holding is big on charity, supporting all kinds of good causes in Qatar and beyond. So these kids ain't just rich, they're learning how to use that money to help people too. As they grow up, you can bet these Al Thani children are going to be taking on bigger roles in the family biz. They're not just inheriting a fortune, they're inheriting a whole empire. And with all that experience living in luxury hotels and running a museum, they're going to know how to keep that empire growing. Wissam Al Mana's children. We've got Wissam Al Mana's children. These little ones are living a life so fancy, it makes designer clothes look like dollar store finds. Their dad, Wissam Al Mana, ain't just rich. He's the guy behind the Al Mana Group, which is like owning all the fanciest stores in the world. We're talking about the company that's got the rights to sell brands like Dolce & Gabbana and Alexander McQueen in Qatar. So these kids, they're probably wearing outfits that cost more than most people's cars. But it ain't just about the clothes. The Al Mana Group is into everything from cars to real estate to media. It's like these kids are growing up with a golden key that unlocks every fancy door in Qatar. Need a new Bentley? Just head to Dad's dealership. Want a penthouse? Daddy's got buildings all over the place. Now you might be thinking, sure, they've got nice stuff, but what about their vacations? Well, hold on to your flip-flops, because these kids don't do regular beach trips. Nah, they're jetting off to private islands in the Maldives. And when winter comes around, they're not building snowmen in the backyard. They're hitting up luxury ski resorts in the Swiss Alps. And they ain't flying commercial like the rest of us. These kids are probably taking private jets that are fancier than most people's houses. We're talking about planes with bedrooms, showers, and maybe even a little playground. It's like a 5-star hotel with wings. But here's the thing, all this luxury ain't just for show. These kids are growing up in a world where billion-dollar deals are just another day at the office. They're learning about business before they can even spell it. While other kids are playing store, these ones are probably sitting in on real business meetings. And it's not all about the money. These kids are getting a unique mix of cultures too. Their dad's business savvy blends with the glitz and glam of their mom, Janet Jackson. Yeah, that Janet Jackson. So they're not just rich kids, they're pop royalty too. But don't think all this fame and fortune means they're out there showing off. Nah, the Al Mana family keeps things private. These kids ain't plastered all over social media. They're living large, but they're doing it on the down low. Nasser Al Khelaifi's children. Their dad, he's the big boss of Qatar Sports Investments and the chairman of Paris Saint-Germain Football Club. Yeah, that PSG, the team with Mbappe, Neymar and all those other superstars. So these kids, they're basically growing up on the sidelines of the world's biggest matches. But it ain't just football. Nasser Al Khelaifi's got his fingers in all sorts of sports pies. He's running beIN, a global sports network that broadcasts major events worldwide. So while other kids are begging their parents for tickets to the World Cup, these ones are probably chilling in the VIP box. And their wardrobe? Forget about it. These kids ain't wearing no regular clothes. They're decked out in designer gear from head to toe. Probably got football boots signed by Messi himself. Now you might think these kids are just living off daddy's fame. But nah, they're learning the family business too. While other kids are playing FIFA on their PlayStations, these ones are probably learning how to run a real football club. Their vacations? Next level. They're jetting around in private planes, hitting up luxury yachts and staying at the fanciest hotels money can buy. It's like their life is one big expensive commercial for the good life. But here's the crazy thing. Their dad used to be a regular guy. He started out as a fisherman's son and worked his way up to become one of Qatar's richest and most influential figures. So these kids ain't just inheriting money, they're inheriting a legacy. And it ain't all about the flash. Their dad's big on giving back too. He's into all sorts of charity stuff and sports programs in Qatar. So these kids are learning that with great wealth comes great responsibility. Looking ahead, these Al Khalifi kids are set up to be major players in the sports world. They're growing up with a front row seat to the biggest games, rubbing shoulders with the best athletes, and learning how to run a sports empire from the inside. So yeah, while other rich kids might be showing off their fancy cars or designer clothes, the Al Khalifi children are living a life that's all about the thrill of the game. They're not just watching sports, they're part of the action, and with their dad's connections and know-how, who knows? They might just end up owning half the sports world one day. From VIP boxes at the World Cup to behind-the-scenes access at the biggest matches, these kids are living a sports fan's ultimate fantasy. But for them, it's just another day in the life. It's a whole new level of rich kid life, where your playground is a football pitch and your dad's friends list reads like a who's who of sports legends. Hamad bin Jassim bin Jaber Al Thani's children. Nothing can be compared to the lifestyle these kids are living. They're not just cruising around in any old boat. Nah, they've got the Al Mirkab, a mega yacht that's so fancy it makes other rich people's boats look like rubber duckies. This thing is over 436 feet long. That's like 1.5 football fields floating on water. And it's got 10 suites that are fancier than most 5-star hotels. We're talking rooms that are bigger than some people's entire houses. But the Al Mirkab ain't just about the bedrooms. This floating palace has got everything you could dream of. There's a movie theater for when they want to catch the latest flicks, a spa for when they need to relax, because you know yacht life can be stressful, and a gym because even billionaire kids gotta stay fit. And the food, forget about it. They've got world-class chefs whipping up gourmet meals whenever they want. These kids are probably eating lobster for breakfast while the rest of us are having cereal. But the yacht life is just the beginning for these Al Thani kids. Their dad's got a real estate empire that'd make Monopoly players jealous. We're talking some of the fanciest properties in London. Ever heard of Harrods? Yeah, that super fancy department store where regular folks save up just to buy a keychain. These kids' family owns it. And it ain't just Harrods. They've also got the Intercontinental Hotel and the Shard. You know, that pointy building that looks like a giant glass pickle sticking out of London's skyline. And get this, the Shard ain't just any old building. It's got offices, restaurants, and a 5-star hotel inside. So these kids are basically part owners of a vertical city. While other rich kids are playing with toy buildings, these ones are learning how to run real skyscrapers. But don't think these Al Thani children are just sitting back and enjoying the yacht life. Nah, they're getting schooled in how to run a global empire. Their dad's got major investments in one of the world's biggest banking groups, so while other kids are learning how to count coins, these ones are probably studying international finance, and their life is a non-stop parade of luxury. They've got access to private jets that make first class look like economy. They're rolling in cars that most people only see in movies. And they're hitting up parties and events that are so exclusive even celebrities have trouble getting in. Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani's children. You thought owning a skyscraper was impressive. Get ready for kids who own an entire country. Coming in at number 4, we've got the children of Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, the current Emir of Qatar. These kids ain't just rich, they're straight up royalty. Their dad's worth billions, but that's chump change compared to the power he's got. He's running a whole country and these kids are next in line. They're not just inheriting money, they're inheriting a nation. Now when these royal kids travel, they don't mess around with regular planes, nah. They've got a Boeing 747 that's decked out like a flying palace. This thing's got bedrooms, meeting rooms, and probably a throne room too. It's so fancy it makes Air Force One look like a budget airline. But that's nothing compared to their yacht. This floating mansion is 124 meters long. That's like having a whole city block on water. It's got room for 35 guests and needs 90 crew members to keep it running. These kids are basically living on a cruise ship, but way fancier. When they're not cruising the seas, they're hitting up private ski resorts. While other rich kids are waiting in lift lines, these royal heirs have whole mountains to themselves. And golf? They've got exclusive courses that make Augusta look like a mini golf setup. But it ain't all play for these royal kids. They're getting schooled in how to run a country. While other teens are stressing about homework, these ones are learning about international diplomacy and oil markets. And get this, they're into charity too. These kids are donating millions to good causes before they can even drive. It's like they're playing real-life Monopoly, but instead of hotels, they're building hospitals and schools. Their wardrobe, forget about it. These kids are probably wearing clothes that cost more than most people's houses. And their toy collection probably includes actual spaceships. But here's the crazy thing. With all this wealth and power, these kids are being groomed to lead. They're not just living the high life, they're preparing to run a nation. While other kids are dreaming about what they want to be when they grow up, these ones already know they're going to be running Qatar. Children of Sheikh Faisal bin Qasim Al Thani. Coming next, we've got the children of Sheikh Faisal bin Qasim Al Thani. These kids ain't just rich, they're business prodigies in the making. Their dad's the chairman of Al Faisal Holding, which is like owning a piece of everything in Qatar. We're talking hotels, real estate, trading, manufacturing, you name it, they probably own it. And these kids, they're learning how to run it all. But here's the wild part. These Al Thani kids ain't just playing around with toy cash registers. Nah, they're getting hands-on experience with the real deal. They're being groomed to take over roles in Al Faisal Holding. It's like they're in a real-life version of Succession, but with way more money and less family drama. Now you might think these kids are just living it up in fancy hotels, and sure, they probably are. Their family owns over 20 luxury hotels around the world, but they're not just guests. They're learning how to run these places. While other kids are building pillow forts, these ones are figuring out how to manage 5-star resorts. And it ain't just hotels. Their family's got a big stake in Armel, a company that's into everything from real estate to healthcare. So these kids are getting schooled in how to run a business empire that touches pretty much every part of life in Qatar. But don't think it's all boring business stuff for these Al Thani children. Their childhood is like something out of a movie. They're growing up surrounded by history and culture thanks to their dad's private museum in Doha. This place ain't your average museum. It's got over 15,000 items, including antique cars, ancient coins, and Islamic art. It's like they're living in their own personal night at the museum. When it comes to travel, these kids ain't messing around with economy class. They've got access to private jets that make first class look like the back of a bus. And their vacations, they're probably choosing between the family's luxury yachts or one of their many 5-star hotels around the world. But here's the thing. With all this crazy wealth, these Al Thani kids are also learning about giving back. Their family's big on charity, supporting all kinds of good causes in Qatar and beyond. So they're not just learning how to make money, they're learning how to use it to help people too. As they grow up, you can bet these kids are going to be taking on bigger roles in the family biz. They're not just inheriting a fortune, they're inheriting a whole empire. And with all that hands-on experience, they're going to know how to keep that empire growing. Wissam Almana's children, he's the big boss of the Almana Group, which is like owning all the fancy stores in Qatar. We're talking about the company that's got the rights to sell brands like Dolce and Gabbana and Alexander McQueen. So these kids, they're probably wearing outfits that cost more than most people's cars before they can even walk. But it ain't just about the clothes. The Almana Group is into everything from cars to real estate to media. It's like these kids are growing up with a golden key that unlocks every fancy door in Qatar. Need a new Bentley? Just head to Dad's dealership. Want a penthouse? Daddy's got buildings all over the place. And get this, their mom's Janet Jackson. Yeah, that Janet Jackson. So these kids ain't just fashion royalty, they're pop royalty too. They're probably getting lullabies sung by a music legend while wearing designer onesies. Now you might be thinking, sure, they've got nice stuff, but what about their lifestyle? Well, hold on to your designer hats, because these kids don't do regular vacations. They're jetting off to private islands in the Maldives, and when winter comes around, they're hitting up luxury ski resorts in the Swiss Alps. But here's the thing, all this luxury ain't just for show. These kids are growing up in a world where billion-dollar fashion deals are just another day at the office. They're learning about business before they can even spell Givenchy. While other kids are playing dress-up, these ones are probably sitting in on real fashion shows. And it's not all about the money. These kids are getting a unique mix of cultures too. Their dad's business savvy blends with the glitz and glam of their mum's pop star world. So they're not just rich kids, they're cultural icons in the making. But don't think all this fame and fortune means they're out there showing off. Nah, the Almana family keeps things private. These kids ain't plastered all over social media. They're living large, but they're doing it on the down low. Looking ahead, these Almana kids are set up to be major players in the fashion world. They're growing up with a front row seat to the biggest fashion shows, rubbing shoulders with the best designers and learning how to run a luxury empire from the inside. Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani's children. You thought fashion royalty was impressive? Well, hold on to your designer hats, because we're about to meet the real deal. At number 1, we've got the children of Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, the Emir of Qatar. These kids ain't just rich, they're literally royalty. Their dad's worth a cool $2.1 billion, but that's pocket change compared to the power he's got. He's running a whole country and these kids are next in line. They're not just inheriting money, they're inheriting a nation. When these royal kids travel, they don't mess around with regular planes. They've got a fleet of private jets that make Air Force One look like a budget airline. We're talking about planes with bedrooms, meeting rooms, and probably gold-plated toilets. These jets are so fancy they probably have their own zip codes, but that's nothing compared to their yacht. This floating palace is 124 meters long. That's like having a whole city block on water. It's got room for 35 guests and needs 90 crew members to keep it running. These kids are basically living on a cruise ship, but way fancier. When they're not cruising the seas, they're chilling on their private islands. Yeah, you heard that right. While other rich kids are begging their parents for a trip to the beach, these royal heirs are deciding which of their islands they want to visit. But it ain't all play for these royal kids. They're getting schooled in how to run a country. While other teens are stressing about homework, these ones are learning about international diplomacy and oil markets. They're probably negotiating trade deals before they can drive. And get this, they're into charity too. These kids are donating millions to good causes before they can even vote. It's like they're playing real-life Monopoly, but instead of hotels, they're building hospitals and schools. Their wardrobe, forget about it. These kids are probably wearing clothes that cost more than most people's houses. And their toy collection probably includes actual spaceships. But here's what sets them apart from everyone else on this list. They're not just rich, they're powerful. These kids are showing up at high-profile events, rubbing elbows with world leaders, while other rich kids are trying to get into exclusive clubs. These ones are hosting the parties that everyone wants to attend. They're not just living the high life, they're shaping the future of their country. They're involved in big decisions, attending important meetings, and learning how to lead a nation. It's like they're in training to rule the world.